Okay, so a personal learning network, once we get this working, the remote's not working. There we go. Huh. It changed from, we got two things up there. We have a professional learning network and a personal learning network. So apparently we're going to talk about developing a professional personal learning network or a personal professional learning network. And a personal learning network is just an informal network of people and resources that an individual use to keep gathering new knowledge, okay? And we just provided a long list of those, but we thought we'd talk a little bit about each of those and how we use them and any techniques that you or anyone else who might join us have used as well.
And that was something that came up at the end of the Small Teaching book by James Lang, kind of indicating this need for us to continue to grow, and that we want to set ourselves up in good circumstances so that we can continue to do that.
So one tool that many people use are social networks, that many people will post interesting teaching resources or interesting things, interesting research they see in the disciplines. Twitter is used for that, among many other things recently, but Twitter is used by many academics for that very regularly. And there's also often people posting, and people often post things on Facebook. There's, for almost any topic, you'll find some Facebook groups that might be relevant.
We could also add to that there's the workplace through SUNY now, which is kind of a Facebook-ish environment that would have, would certainly connect to people throughout SUNY.
It's basically a Facebook for businesses, and we have that adopted for SUNY and any SUNY school. Anyone at any SUNY school, at least in principle, there's still a few bugs occasionally. Rebecca ran into that, but it's working now for her, and it's working for many. It's been working for many of us. It lets you connect with colleagues at all of the SUNY institutions. So we're hoping that eventually there'll be some disciplinary groups that will show up, so that perhaps all of the historians and SUNY might get together and share some resources, or all the economists or physicists or graphic designers, for example, might get together and share resources. So it's basically a Facebook without the cat videos, although I've seen a few cat videos there, but it's primarily Facebook for work. And that, for those people who don't feel comfortable going on to the public Facebook, this is one which is much more professional. So many people say they feel much more comfortable posting things there and going in there because they see things that are relevant to what they're doing in their workplace. While on Facebook, they see all sorts of political posts, and sometimes some of those get annoying at times.
Sometimes you can use those social networks in a way that one becomes a more personal platform and one's a little more professional. So for example, my Facebook account is much more personal. I share a lot more, I disclose a lot more personal information there. And really the people that I connect with, although some of them are colleagues, they're people that I know fairly well. And then on Twitter, that's a much more professional. I don't share anything really personal there other than things that are specific to my discipline and my work life.
Okay. Another tool of staying abreast in your discipline or teaching or other things is to use MOOCs. There are lots of free MOOCs out there. For each of these things, or for many of these things, we'll be having shorter workshops later in the day where we focus on individual topics such as MOOCs. But you can sign up for a MOOC for free. Most of them last for between 4 and 6 weeks, or 4 to 8 weeks in a few cases. And you basically take a course, often along with tens of thousands of other people. But in those programs, they often model some really good teaching practices. Sometimes they're not so good, but they rely on peer evaluation and peer feedback, and lots of low-stakes testing and repeated testing. And it's a nice way of getting some information. And many of the MOOCs are put together by top people in the field. Podcasts are another thing that is becoming more and more useful. Podcasts have been around for about 12, 13 years or so. They pretty much got started with the first Apple iPod. Many schools actually started to adopt that, but it fell out of favor initially because there just weren't that many people using them. But Duke, for example, when the Apple iPod first came out, gave each freshman an iPod, and they encouraged faculty to develop podcasts and so forth. That lasted for, I think, a year, maybe 2 years. But we've seen a resurgence in podcasting as more and more people now have the technology to record decent podcasts and so on. And you can find podcasts on virtually any topic, including topics in your discipline. In my discipline, for example, there's an economics research podcast where a person will talk about 4 or 5 of the major papers that were released in the previous 2 weeks. And he'll focus on a few of them in detail and then provide a summary of some of the other topics. And then he has show notes where you can go and actually get links to the paper as well as more information. We've got our own podcast here, the T for Teaching one. There's a Teaching and Higher Ed podcast, which is very popular. There's a Teach Better podcast from Cornell, which is, again, a very good podcast. But you can find podcasts on virtually any topic you'd like now.
I think they've become much more popular as audio interfaces in cars have become more standardized. So it's a lot easier to access that content on the go.
And we've always seen lots of videos out there, instructional videos, and if you really need to do something and you're stuck, they're really helpful. But one of the problems with recording workshops and other things is that you have to physically sit at your computer and watch them, or physically sit with your mobile device and watch it, and you can't be doing anything else. With one of the advantages, as Rebecca just said, with podcasts, is you can now listen to them in the car very easily, either through a Bluetooth connection or by plugging your phone into your an auxiliary jack. And it allows you basically to go on long drives and listen to hours worth of podcasts if you'd like. Or while you're walking, you can listen to them, or while you're exercising or doing chores and so on. There's lots of blogs out there that you can follow, and that's another good way of staying abreast of developments in your field or discipline. There's also RSS feeds, where, Rebecca, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, RSS feeds are a way to get content from blogs, news sites, and other places that kind of regularly update their content all in one place. So you don't need to go to each individual website, but you can kind of aggregate them together.
And that works with blogs, it works with many news sites, it works with podcasts and many other resources. And another thing you can do is, if there's something that you're really interested in terms of your research or in terms of teaching, you can create a Google alert. And we'll jump to that in just a second. It's really easy to do. You just go to www.google.com/alert, and you can create a search for anything you'd like to. It could, if you're interested in a particular research topic, or if you're interested in finding out something about it, you create a Google alert, and whenever Google finds anything new about that, it will send you an update with a link to that. You can also do the same thing in Google Scholar, so that you can have a search for other research related to your research, or when anyone cites your work or something similar. And we also listed Google Scholar, which is a way of keeping track of how many people are using things that you publish. Another way of, actually, let's jump over just to the Google Alerts for a second, and we'll come right back to this. Once I get back to the screen here. Oh, come on. Google Alerts. There we go. So you just go to google.com/alerts, or search on Google for Google Alerts. And I haven't used it actually here. I have it done in Google Scholar. I just did create one where it will suggest some things you might want to look for. And I just created one for my email address. So if anyone posts something that links to my email address, or if anyone, there's a lot of John Kanes out there, so I don't think I want to do that. But you could post something on anything. Let's say I want to do something on switching equation models with, common things that you might want to look at with endogenous switching, for example. There we go. There we go. So I will create an alert on that, and you have some options. You can go in and you can choose how often you want to send it. This will do it at most once a day. This will give you the option of what to search for. You could search just on the web or news or blogs or video. I suppose I could do this in video to see if there's any new videos coming out on that, but I'll probably just leave it general. You can search for it in specific languages or countries. You can put, as many results as you want, and you choose where you want to send it to. And you also have the option in general of, well, I didn't make any changes there. So, I'll send this for all results because I don't think there's going to be a lot on that. So I will just click Update Alert, and now that's defined. Now you can also choose when you get them. So you can go in and specify a delivery time. You could choose any hour or whatever. And you could choose to get all your alerts in a single email or individual ones for each of the things that you have searches for. And that's kind of a nice resource. And there's also Google Scholar. And it's asking me to find my affiliation. Okay, that kind of works. Okay, so here's, for example, my Google Scholar citations. So it will go out and find any articles that you've written that are accessible or that it finds in other sources. And then it will find all the people who cited you. And one of the things I've done, and I find this kind of useful, is to get a notification whenever someone else has cited my work, so I can go in and see if they've actually read it. I've been amazed by the number of people who cited my work in papers who claim something different from it than what it actually said, because that paper cited an awful lot, and I think a lot of people just grab it from the bibliography of other papers and don't actually look at the findings in it. But again, you can go in then and click on it and see, these are all the papers that have cited it, for example. And then you can see who cited those. It's a really good way of staying abreast with research in your field. Okay. Let me move this down to the bottom so it won't be in the way. Well, you won't be seeing it, sorry. But we had something in the way there. So now let's go back to where we were. And other things you may want to do to stay up to date in your field and teaching and learning is by using professional associations and interest groups, which could include email lists related to your topic. In economics, there is a TeachEcon listserv that has, I think, over 1,000 subscribers. So people use that on a daily basis, where someone will post a question and will get responses from other people about how they dealt with those issues. Or if someone finds an interesting resource or an interesting study, they'll post a link to it, and then there'll often be some really good discussions there. And the same is true with any special interest group within your discipline. For example, in economics, there's a Society of Labor Economics, and there's the Econometric Society, and other things, which are good ways to stay up to date with your with research. There's lots of groups out there. There's Slack channels for many things now that they're starting to appear. For example, the Teaching in Higher Ed blog has a Slack channel. We have a Slack channel for the T for Teaching podcast, but we're starting to see them in a more diverse area, and I think you use some in your discipline.
Yeah, it's really popular in design disciplines, and it comes out of design and kind of startup culture to have like these sort of informal places, which is where like kind of Slack came. But now a lot of other kinds of institutions and organizations are adopting that method.
And there's still some Google groups out there. One complication is they don't work with our Google or with our campus email list. But if you have a personal account, you can use them. They're probably a little less common than they were a couple of years ago. Most people have been moving to other mechanisms because of many campuses don't allow them with their campus email. There's lots of conferences where you can go and find information on pretty much anything. Certainly, pretty much all professional associations in academic disciplines will have conferences where they have sessions on teaching in the discipline.
I think you can also, sometimes what you don't realize is that there's also conferences that are on specific kinds of teaching. So, there might be a conference that's entirely about community-based learning, right?
Or team-based learning.
Right, so there's conferences on those things as well. So sometimes those are harder to find if you're not specifically looking for them. So that might be something to kind of keep in mind.
And we have the SUNY CIT conference, which it comes up every year about 2 weeks after finals. And that has a lot of information related to teaching and learning. Journals in your field and journals in related to teaching and learning are becoming more common. The Scholarship of Pedagogy has been growing quite a bit throughout academia. And we also have workshops here that we'd encourage you to come and participate in, as I know you have. And we have now, as Rebecca mentioned before, SUNY Workplace. Anyone in SUNY can join this, and there's a growing number of groups there where people share information. For example, I created one on mobile technology that grew out of a SUNY-wide task force on that. There is another one on AR and VR. There's one on instructional technology. There's one on instructional technology. There's lots of them out there. And there's a growing number. And also departments, many departments for the last several years have been having retreats where they talk about teaching and learning and assessment and so forth in their departments. Some departments do that more than others. Well, so those are the broad things that we wanted to talk about. And we've just got some time here. Let me unmute your microphone. Just in case you were trying to say something. Do you have any questions or comments or reactions or thoughts?
Yes, thank you, John. It was informative. My questions center around your experiences with other people managing their Twitter accounts, managing their Facebook accounts, managing Google alerts. I'm looking at ways to keep abreast with with all this information, but don't really have the time to manage it efficiently, which I'm sure we all have that problem. Any ideas about how to do that, especially posting on Twitter consistently? You know, having a consistent Twitter presence, I think, is important. But it's difficult for me to manage that in my schedule, and I was wondering if you had any ideas on that.
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
So I have the same problems, Tammy. This is Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
And I teach in digital media, so you would think that like that's an area that I should be really active in, right? And I am at times, but I think what I did was I spread my net wide initially to try all the things, and then the ones that worked the best for me are the ones I kept, and then I started shutting down things that weren't working for me or getting out of those. So, you know, not every discipline or every area is going to be active in all these spaces. Yeah. So I would kind of dabble. Yeah, I would dabble in them, figure out which one seems to be the vibrant community you feel most connected to, and stay there, and kind of let the other ones fizzle away.
Yeah, it's hard to let someone else manage it because you lose many of the benefits if someone else is doing it for you. Now, for the Twitter feed, I have my own, but we also have a self one. We do let the student post, and we have some automated posts, for example. So we have a connection where we're using Zapier, where whenever we have a calendar event for a workshop available, it's automatically tweeted out 15 minutes before. So we've automated that part of it, so we don't have to do that ourselves. But
which I wouldn't say is like the best use of Twitter. No. But it is helpful to our particular audience to know that information.
And it lets people who are active on it, if they choose, to get notifications so they could click on a link and join us for any of these remotely. So, but yeah, I pretty much do my own. But again, you just have to pick and choose your times, and you may need some time away periodically and just come in when you have time to do it.
Thanks. When you were talking about the Google alerts, I had tried that, but felt that my emails were just kind of inundated. It was hard to manage that. Do you recommend creating like a separate personal email just to curate all of that information so it doesn't intermingle with a SUNY email?
I have my own personal email, and actually the CELT office has its own personal Gmail, not so much as a way of managing things, but more because there's so many Google services that are blocked when we're on campus. So we, for example, sometimes use YouTube, or I use YouTube, and we can't access that if we're logged into the Google account. And so I needed to create some separate ones. But you can do that. And some people do have email addresses that they use primarily for things where they don't want to read them that regularly. So if you want to have an email where these things go to, and then you look at them at your own time, you can do it. Or with the Google Alerts, you could choose the digest option and get all of them. Let me just see
Them
how
all together, and I
you
think
can
you
get
can
them.
get them pretty infrequently. Mine come pretty infrequently.
You might be able to set it up. I know you can do it daily, but you might be able to do it
Like
weekly
weekly
or
or
something
monthly.
similar. Yeah. So then you get it all as one mailing, which makes it a lot more convenient.
The other thing too is like if you're visiting a lot of like more like trade magazines or things that would be more blog-like that are like regularly updated, the RSS feeds, which we have a workshop on later, is a really great way of collating that stuff without it inundating your email.
So you go to it when you have time
Yeah.
to look at them.
And then I often use that in combination with a tool called Pocket. So I'll like skim through the feeds, find stuff that I'm interested in, and then save stuff that I actually really want to read in an account. So that's a way to kind of manage, because I too don't want all that stuff coming to my email. I used to do a lot of like email listserv stuff, and I've like unsubscribed from everything because it's too much.
Yes. Understood. I hear you. And my last question, we're interested, we're doing some community-based research and we're linking to the school districts and doing some PD for the teachers. And I like the idea of podcasts, just kind of a quick one. Do you record those on your cell phone?
No. I wouldn't recommend, it can be done on a cell phone, but I wouldn't recommend it. It really helps if you have a fairly decent mic. It could be a USB mic. The basic Snowball mic is about $50, and there's others like that. Having good audio quality is really helpful, because when people are listening to the audio, the higher the quality of your voice recording, the more people will enjoy it, because it just doesn't, people, with your cell phone, it's just a little thinner. It's not picking up as much resolution. It's not picking up the same
You get a lot
frequency
more
range,
background noise.
and there's more background noise. So if you have a really good microphone, it doesn't have to be great, but $40 to $60 mics can give you a really good result. Plugged into your computer, you could get some really good recordings.
You're also welcome to come visit us in the cell office and see our setup.
I think I will. We have a number of our students have expertise in different areas, and I was going to require them to provide maybe a 15-minute recording of some of their topics, and then we would let the teachers have access to that. So is there a place that they can go in the library to do that, so we have a consistent?
Sharona manages the multimedia rooms in the library, and they basically have a recording studio, and the quality of those is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, we have a podcast episode with Stephanie Pritchard that talks about podcasting, and that's the space they used for theirs.
Okay, I'll look that up. Thank you.
And they're, if you want to hear their podcast, it's on voicesofoswegoveterans.com. And those were student recorded, actually first-year students. So.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so we're going to just get started on the next one, and the next one is on MOOCs. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Tammy.
Thank you.
We'll stop this recording.